She stood at the edge of the bridge, not to jump, but to disappear, at least in her mind. The city lights below blurred through her tears, each one a reminder of a life she felt she didn't deserve to live. "I don't deserve love," she whispered to the wind, her voice barely audible over the traffic humming beneath her feet. What she didn't know was that someone was listening, someone who would spend the next 6 months proving her wrong. Sarah Chen had always been the girl who gave everything and expected nothing in return. At 28, she'd sacrificed her college dreams to care for her dying mother, worked 3 jobs to keep her younger brother in school, and smiled through every heartbreak as if pain was just another item on her to-do list. But 3 weeks ago, her brother had left for college without a goodbye. Her best friend had stopped returning her calls after Sarah couldn't afford to be a bridesmaid in her wedding, and her landlord had given her 30 days to vacate the tiny apartment she'd called home for 5 years. The universe, it seemed, had finally confirmed what she'd always suspected. She was unworthy of the very thing she'd spent her whole life giving to others. That November evening, she'd gone to the Morrison Street Bridge not with any dark intention, but simply because she had nowhere else to go. The shelter was full, her car had been repossessed, and the thought of asking anyone for help felt like admitting she'd failed at the one thing she thought she was good at, surviving invisibly. "Excuse me, you dropped this." The voice came from behind her, gentle but certain. She turned to find a man in a worn jacket holding out her wallet, the one she didn't even realize had slipped from her pocket. He was probably in his early 30s, with kind eyes that seemed too bright for someone standing on a bridge at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday night. "Thanks," she muttered, reaching for it. But he didn't let go immediately. "I'm Marcus," he said. "And I know that look." She pulled the wallet free, defensive walls shooting up. "What look?" "The one that says you're trying to figure out how you became invisible." He stepped back, giving her space, his hands in his pockets. "I wore it for 2 years after I came back from Afghanistan. Thought nobody cared whether I existed or not." Sarah's throat tightened. She wanted to walk away, to protect what little pride she had left, but something in his tone, raw and honest, without a trace of pity, kept her frozen in place. "I'm fine," she lied. Marcus nodded slowly. "Okay. But just so you know, there's a diner 2 blocks from here that makes terrible coffee and amazing pie. If you change your mind about being fine, I'll be there for the next hour. No pressure, no strings. Just pie." Then he did something unexpected, he walked away. He didn't push, didn't pry, didn't try to save her like she was some broken bird. He simply offered and left the choice to her. 20 minutes later, Sarah found herself sliding into a cracked vinyl booth across from Marcus at Rosie's Diner, a slice of apple pie growing cold between them. She wasn't sure why she'd come, maybe because it had been 3 days since she'd eaten anything substantial, or maybe because someone had finally seen her without her having to beg to be noticed. "I don't deserve love," she said suddenly, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. "I've spent my whole life trying to earn it, and I'm still empty-handed." Marcus took a sip of the terrible coffee, wincing slightly. "Then let me show you you do," he replied simply. "Not because I want anything from you, but because someone did it for me once, and I think it's my turn to pass it on." Over the next 6 months, Marcus became the proof Sarah never knew she needed. But not in the way romantic stories usually unfold. He didn't sweep her off her feet with grand gestures or passionate declarations. Instead, he showed up in the small, steady ways that actually matter. When Sarah couldn't find work, Marcus didn't offer her money, he knew she'd refuse. Instead, he connected her with Rosa, the diner's owner, who needed help with the books. When Sarah's brother finally called, racked with guilt, Marcus sat quietly in the corner of the diner while she cried, never once telling her what to feel. When she got sick with the flu and had no one to call, he left soup and medicine outside the door of the tiny room she was renting, with a note that said, "Not charity. Just soup." But the real turning point came in April, when Marcus's own demons resurfaced. Sarah arrived at the diner one afternoon to find it closed, and Rosa tearfully explained that Marcus had been hospitalized. A PTSD episode triggered by a car backfiring had sent him spiraling. For the first time in her life, Sarah had the chance to give love to someone who truly needed it, without scorekeeping, without expecting anything in return. She spent 3 days at his bedside, reading to him when the nightmares came, holding space for his pain without trying to fix it. And somewhere in those quiet hospital hours, Sarah realized something profound. Love wasn't something you earned through perfection or sacrifice. It wasn't a reward for being good enough. It was simply the act of showing up for someone, and letting them show up for you. When Marcus was released, they sat once again in that same cracked booth at Rosie's, the morning sun streaming through the window. "You saved my life," he said quietly. Sarah shook her head. "No, you saved mine first. I just returned the favor." "That's what I've been trying to tell you," Marcus replied, a small smile crossing his face. "Love isn't a debt. It's not something you deserve or don't deserve. It's just people choosing each other, over and over again, especially on the days when it's hard." 2 years later, Sarah stood in that same diner, but everything had changed. She was managing the books for 3 local businesses, had reconciled with her brother, and had even started taking night classes at community college. Marcus had become her best friend, not her savior, not her romantic interest, but her witness. The person who saw her on her worst day and decided she was worth sticking around for. On the wall behind the counter, Rosa had hung a small sign that Sarah had painted: "Love is not earned. It is shared." And every time Sarah saw it, she remembered that cold November night on the bridge, when a stranger with kind eyes had offered her terrible coffee and amazing pie, and in doing so, had offered her something far more valuable, proof that her existence mattered, not because of what she could give, but simply because she was human, and humans are worthy of love by virtue of being alive. She finally believed it, not because someone had convinced her with words, but because someone had shown her through actions, day after ordinary day, that she deserved to take up space in this world. And now, whenever she saw that look, the invisible look, in someone else's eyes, she knew exactly what to do. Offer pie. Show up. Prove that love isn't something we deserve. It's something we all already have the right to receive.